Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to look at 3 tanks that a lot of you guys probably won't even know what they are. So what the hell are these tanks? Now, we're not just looking at 1 tank. We're not just looking at 2 tanks. We're actually looking at 3 different tanks. 3 different tanks that Wargaming used to bring, well, they brought into the game something different. And what we are talking about are the Y5s. Yes, the Y5. Y5. There are 3 different Y5 tanks in the game. And we thought it was a new thing. You know, they're kind of defenders. You know, we've got the defenders, and these 3 tanks are kind of like the defenders. They look like the defenders. But yeah, they are actually called Y5. So, which basically, I think it's year 5. I think these come out. So, and no one knows what they are. No one knows. You know, they don't really sell them anymore. Very rarely they sell them anymore. And yeah, it's been a very long time, and they stopped making them. You know, they changed it up a bit, and they started selling different kind of tanks, and yeah, they stopped at 3. It was I thought it was going to be a thing that kept going, you know, but yeah, Wargaming decided to leave it at 3 tanks. So of course, the 3 tanks we are looking at is the T34 in tier 5, and then you move up to tier 6. You've got the Firefly, the Y5 Firefly, and then you move to tier 7. And then you have the ELC BIS. Now, some of these are actually quite good tanks. We are going to look at just a couple of games of each, and then decide whether Wargaming should release them again, or you know, they absolutely suck and they should never release them. So the T34, the Y5 T34, you know, it's all right. There's nothing too special about the tank. It's obviously got low alpha, reloads okay, it's got no armor whatsoever, but it can be a fun tank. I think it is a little bit sluggish. I mean, you can see me going at 50 kilometers an hour here, but I do feel it could be a bit better. And that's the thing with all three of these tanks. Like, none of them are really stand-out tanks. Like, wow, that is absolutely amazing, you know. They are very much like the defenders. And each defender, there's one, of course, there is one defender that I really don't mind. But the others are kind of like that okay. And that's literally about it. So yeah, it has been a while since Wargaming released them, and a lot of the players nowadays, especially the new players, will probably not even know what these tanks are. Have you got one of these tanks, or have you got all 3? Let me know in the comments below. Or are you one of those newer players that have not got a clue what they are, have never seen them in the battlefield, and you think I'm just talking absolute shit because what are these tanks? I'll have a look as well after the game, just how many people, or not after the game, but after all 3 games, just how many people are actually playing these tanks. I haven't actually seen it yet, so I really don't know how many people are playing the tanks, but we'll have a look at the end of the video. So again, moving on to tier 6, we have the Firefly. Now, again, I do think this is better than the tier 5 version. I think it's not bad. I think the reload is pretty solid. Again, none of these tanks you can talk about the armor, because the armor is non-existent on each of these tanks. So, so yeah, you're not going to bounce hardly anything unless you are very, 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 very lucky. Yeah, you can't rely on the armor profile. Now, I do think Wargaming should release some again, because you know they're actually premium tanks at the moment. Whether they'll go, I think they'll probably go to collectibles at some point, but yeah, you know, why not? And I'll say that a lot about premium tanks, and that's one thing Wargaming don't do enough, is sell the old premium tanks again, because there are so many tanks out there, so many premium tanks out there that are not popular. Like, they really are not popular at all. And Wargaming just don't sell them enough, you know, all the old tanks, you know. I'm not just talking about premium tanks, but I'm also talking about the collectibles that were in as a tech tree at update 5.5. Wargaming then obviously removed them, put them as a collectible. I'm talking about them tanks as well, and I don't think Wargaming does enough. I really don't. I think they should rebalance some of them, because I think that is one of the main reasons why people don't play them, is because they're just not worth playing. There are better premium tanks out there now, and that's the same with these 3 tanks here. Yeah, there isn't any point playing them. Even this one, the ELC BIS, it's not a bad tank. You know, the reload is pretty good at 3.8, and it is kind of like a Comet, but you know, I'd rather go play the Comet. But, well, I say rather play the Comet. Even the Comet now isn't pretty much worth playing, because Wargaming just don't love it anymore. You know, there's just too many tanks out there that Wargaming are constantly rebalancing, rechanging, and they just leave certain tanks behind. And some of the old premium tanks, as I've said, let's take the Rarity, for example, one of my first premium tanks in the game, like one of the first premium tanks, apart from the premium tanks that were in the tech tree, like the IS-6, the T34, etc. One of the first premium tanks to ever come to the shop, really, and they just don't give it any love. They just sort of let it rot. They don't even sell it anymore. Very rarely sell the tank, and yeah, it is a shame, because, you know, there's still people that have been around a long time. I get that most of the people that were around have pretty much left, and all we have now are sort of the newer players that will probably never know what these tanks are. And that's why I do these series, you know, the tanks that are not popular, the Hafen, you know, tanks like that are never, ever, ever played and never, ever, ever sold. Most of you guys that have been playing for a year or two would have probably have never even seen these tanks. And that's why I do these videos, because, you know, it gives the people a chance to see what they are like, you know, because they've never seen the tanks. At least it gives you the guys the opportunity to actually just have a look at the tank. And if for some reason Wargaming decide that they will sell the tank again, you can then decide whether you want to buy it. But to be fair, all 3 of these tanks, there is really nothing special about all 3 of them. So even if they are sold, yeah, I wouldn't bother wasting too much money on these tanks. As I have already said, they are average tanks, nothing special. But this one I do probably prefer more, not just because it's a tier 7 tank, but I do feel it's actually an okay tank and can perform. But when you come up against higher tiers in all 3 of these tanks, you really will struggle. So let's have a look. Just you know, I'm just interested now, and I can't let it drop. How many people have been playing these 3 tanks? So we're going to head over to BlitzStars, and that is where we will look at the stats. So here we are on BlitzStars. We've got all 3 tanks in a row with the tier 5, the tier 6, the tier 7. Now, those of you that have never used BlitzStars, I would definitely recommend using it. It's been around like forever, and it's definitely a good third-party tool to use to compare tanks, to look at tanks' armor profile. Well, not armor, but their, you know, not a picture of their armor. But it does show all the stats and stuff like that. You can also, I use it a lot for Hall of Fame games. If you get a Hall of Fame, you can post a replay and it will end up on the Hall of Fame. So yeah, definitely a tank, definitely a website worth using, especially if you do want to compare tanks. You know, you could put any tank on here. At the minute, we're not comparing all 3 tanks. That's why you can see the green, because obviously the green is better than the other tank. DPM, blah blah blah. So yeah, definitely a good website to use. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, let's have a look at how many people are playing this tank. These tanks at the moment, and as you can see, the T34. Only 20 people have played it over the last 90 days. The Firefly 32 and the ELC BIS 22. So 20 players, just 20. That is not a lot. If you compare that to something like, I know it's completely different, but if you compare that to something like a Death Star, which is a very, 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 very popular, we scroll all the way down to the bottom, and there is there's 12,969 players that have played this tank over the last 90 days. Compare that to 20. So yeah, none of them are popular tanks. Wargaming never sell the tanks. A lot of you guys will never really have seen the tanks. Let me know if you got all three of these tanks in your garage, and also let me know if you've actually never seen them on the battlefield. But for now, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'm meadsy69, and I'll catch you all soon. Bye-bye.